Hey, this is Chuck, and you are listening to Fans with Bands, the podcast where we talk to the fans and the bands they dig about life, music, and whatever the hell else we want to talk about. Today on Fans with Bands, we're talking to the Picassos. Check it out. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Fret Rescue. Located in Southeast Michigan, Joe at Fret Rescue has over 17 years of experience as a journeyman luthier. From basic setup to major repairs and restorations, you can put your trust in Fret Rescue. Contact Fret Rescue via email at fretrescue@gmail.com. You can also find them on social media by searching for Fret Rescue, @FERTRESCUE. That's Fret Rescue. Hey, this is Chuck with Fans with Bands, and I'm talking to Thorin, Dan, Charles, and Joe from the Picassos. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We also have a couple of fans. We've got Lauren and Shelby. How you guys? All right, awesome. Well, I think you guys were kind enough. Well, actually, you were kind enough to reach out via Messenger. Sent me, saying that you thought the podcast was cool, and were kind enough to give me the download codes to your album. And I was on there on Bandcamp checking it out, and I just thought, hell yes, we should have you guys on the Fans with Bands, because I was very intrigued by the music, because it's something that I've not listened to a lot personally, but I felt like the music was like just so original and so I want to say nuanced and textured, because all the different songs, you've got different feelings through all of them. There's a kind of haunted, dreamlike quality that I really liked. It kind of reminded me, and I don't know if you guys have listened to the Doves, but some of their music has that kind of like very atmospheric and, not necessarily dark, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. And that's how I felt like your music was, just very intriguing, super interesting. And I thought, hell yes, we should talk. So thank you guys so much for being on Fans with Bands.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
So how did the band come together? How did you guys get started?
Well, it kind of started as a solo project of sorts. I myself had to cobble together a suitcase and a tambourine as my backup percussion, and would just kind of do acoustic performances wherever I could. That kind of prolonged for a year or so. And then at some fateful event, I met up with Thorin, and that's really when things started kind of rolling forward. Dan and I have known each other for many years. We go back in various other projects, of course. But when I knew we had a solid foundation with Thorin and Dan, that's really when the Picassos became what close to what it is today. And then finally, 2 years ago, roughly, we added Joe into the mix for keyboard support, and that was really, I think, when you're going to get everything you hear on the record is everything that the four of us have been able to put together and bring all those influences in. So, short bit of our history.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was the inspiration for the name?
Well, it's funny because I was performing under the Picassos as a solo artist for some time, and the intention was always to create a band, have people to back me up, and be a group, a unit. And it kind of just started evolving over time to mean various things. But ultimately, I like to think of it as a dead artist more than anything else. And explicitly how they often do not get much recognition until after they die.
Oh, wow, awesome. Crazy. I'm wondering, like, what was it about Picasso in particular?
Not a lot, to be fair. It's not.
It wasn't the blue
explicitly
period.
It really, to be sure, like, I appreciate the painter I appreciate the work and the history, but it is less a tribute to the man or his art and more of just the namesake and what that could invoke
Yeah,
in an ever-changing kind of a ambiguous, implaceable thing, was really the ultimate inspiration.
excellent. I like it. I think it's uh, again like just like your music in a way, intriguing. You know, you're like, why? You know, what is
The
that?
jury's out. Some like it, some, eh.
I think it works good. So if you know, for people that have not heard your music before, how would you describe your music to them? And this is a question for all of you. Like, when someone says, you know, hey, you know, what do you do as far as like music, and they've not heard you before, and you say, oh, I'm in a band, the Picassos, and they say, well, what kind of music is that? What do you tell them?
I'm a bad judge of this. So
I
So
Charles
am
never
I.
Charles doesn't tell people he's in bands, so they assume by looking at him. I mean, look at him. But I mean, personally, I think I've always described this as like I've used cemetery folk quite a bit or funeral folk. Um, just like it's dead, but very, very lively still.
Yeah.
It's yeah, just like I brace
Lauren
people
says
for the
Spooky Rock coffee shop located inside a. I missed the last message, but
Oh, it says
yeah,
Spooky Rock Coffee Shop located inside a funeral parlor. That's awesome.
there it is. Yeah.
that's fair. That sounds inviting.
Uh, oh
Sorry,
man.
Dan, you were saying?
no, nothing really more there. It's just a good like I boil it down to just calling us a rock band so that people will give us a chance.
Yeah.
Because when you
Yeah.
mention you're a goth band, people are like, okay, but like you guys were like the eyeliner and all that. It's like, yeah, sometimes. So
Yeah. Well, and you know, even the term goth is very like broad. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that can go in there, and it can be, you know, to someone's liking that likes The Cure, or somebody that may not like The Cure but likes can't even think of another goth band, but you know what I'm saying? It's a very big broad term, but so is rock, you know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
definitely like the Spooky Rock Coffee Shop because
That's a good.
yeah,
That's. I
that's
what
very good.
when I talk to people about the kind of music that we make, so I do kind of use the umbrella of like, oh, like goth rock sort of thing.
Hmm.
I sort of, I think one phrase that has been used is cemetery punk, and I think maybe Dan used it already. I can't remember exactly what
it's a
he said.
cemetery folk, but it's the same.
Yeah,
Cemetery folk, yeah. So
Yeah.
cemetery punk, and then the funniest description of our music that I think I've heard so far is Scooby Doo chase music, which who said that? Luke.
I will accept. That's fine.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like because you got, I guess you got some of like the faster punk stuff. You got more of the folky tunes, and then you got some more of the fun upbeat stuff, kind of like Weird Sisters on Divination Scars, or there's another song that on one of our other EPs and other scary stories, X-Ray Specs, that's pretty popular. So it's very much like, I don't know, fast dancey sort of stuff. So we kind of dabble in that a little bit too.
yeah,
We
Yeah,
have something
it's
for
very
everybody.
varied.
yeah.
Yes,
Because there's also
we walk.
some tunes on there that are kind of like almost um, roots rock, kind of like very. I, it made me think of like steampunk, but I don't just because I associate that music with steampunk, but um, and I'm blanking out on the name of the tune. I'd have to go look on Bandcamp. It's like toward the middle of the list, and it's kind of like an old timey kind of sounding.
I
Uh,
think you're talking serious business.
oh yes, serious business. Yes, has kind
Mm.
of an old
Yep.
timey. Yeah,
Yes, inspired a little bit by like show tunes,
yeah,
that kind of storytelling aspect to it. But that one, is no surprise, is largely influenced by the likes of like Tom Waits or
yeah,
I guess a Leonard at that point.
yeah.
Um, but just to kind of tap into the vagaries of it, but also give you a story, take you by the hand, and this is kind of what it is. And it's inspired by true life events in the death care industry.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
there's that.
Very cool. So the debut album that you guys put out, I think it was May of last year, with Divination Scars. Curious what, for each of you, what is your favorite track or tracks on the album, and why?
Oh, mine is Wicker Casket. I just think it's such a good holistic representation of us, and not just our sound but our theme, because it's a song that's very explicitly about mourning and about coping with loss of a loved one,
And
and
dying itself.
Yeah.
yes, but it but I also I love the I'm very proud of the instrumentation on it. I think the arrangement just came together really well on that. I think the mix came together really well on it, and I think it walks a really nice line between of having like some catchy hooks in it, but having a lot of depth at the same time.
Cool. Awesome. Who wants to go next?
Oh,
No, go ahead, please.
oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. I guess I'm stuck between two. It's like, because it's like I really like Thousand Eyes Restrict, the song that we released as a single, I believe, in April before we released it. So that one's a lot of fun, and to me, it's just very ethereal, very atmospheric, and it's like, I don't know, it's like kind of like what you're mentioning earlier. It's like it almost feels like this haunted, spooky sort of dream a little bit. I also like it's towards the end of the album, and it's not one that's very much in our live rotation that much, but Slaughtered Lamb is one that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, that was very cool too.
I don't know. It's like it's like, I don't know. I like songs, like I'm a big like 70s rock guy. I love songs that just have like you can just it's just a jam to me. It's like it's yeah. So I don't know. Lots of cool instrumental stuff happening there too.
Awesome. Dan and Charles, who wants to go next?
I'd have to say I agree with both Thorin and Joe. Those are great songs. I think Wicker, like Thorin said, is a great encapsulation of absolutely everything we've done and do. And Thousand is like one of my favorites to play live. You can just really get lost in that groove.
Yeah.
Once you're locked in. But I think on the album, I think still one of my favorites is Go Dark. It's surprisingly poppy, which is always very fun. But like it's a good groove. It's one I just really enjoyed recording, playing, and doing all that.
Nice. Charles, how about you?
Yeah, it changes all the time, to be fair. And we've had the time now to really kind of live with the record and live with the songs and the iterations, and they continue to evolve and grow a little bit. But I think one that really is a great encapsulation of what I had in my head was Leather Wings of Blood is a Life is my vampire ballad that I always had in my head. And I think that remarkably came together rather well. It features our friend Gerard from Second Salem, in fact. So that was a coup to have all the pieces fit together and find. Oh.
What the fuck?
Oh, hold on here.
Okay.
You got some spam, friend.
Yeah, we got some spammers.
Oh, I guess we do. Great.
All right.
I can delete it.
Sorry about that.
Does that happen often for you?
Well, every once in a while, because it's, the Zoom's open. I don't really know who the fans are.
Right.
Yeah. That's the first time we had something like that. But
if he's a fan, he can fuck right the hell off. So.
Yeah, that's
For real.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
I sorry
trying
about that,
to.
guys.
You're right. He is trying to. Never mind. He can stop fucking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wait. Um,
Yes.
All right. So where were we?
Yeah, I think Charles was talking about Leatherwings.
Yeah.
I was, but I don't know if I want to continue that thought.
All right.
Right. I might bring him back. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. Christ.
Anyway,
So, I was going to say that maybe it was Torrin that mentioned the mix, and I was, my favorite track on there was Thousand Eyes, and I thought the mix was so good on that tune. Something about the way and I really love the sound of the snare. Actually, on the
Thank
whole
you.
album, the drums, super cool. The snare
Thank
sounds
you.
awesome.
Would
I
you
also
believe he
like
also drums?
the thick fuzz on that on the guitars itself, and there's just something like an insistence to that song. And there's a few other tunes that have that kind of the beat. I think Dan, you were mentioning the groove of Thousand Eyes was something that you could
Mhm.
get into yourself. But
Mhm.
there's a few tunes that like that have a very insistent beat that kind of just pulls you in. And then, you get the words and you're like, and the words on that song I was intrigued by. And Charles, are you the primary lyric writer?
He writes
yes.
everything.
Writes everything. So I was curious what was, can you give me the kind of the thought process behind that song?
That track 1000. Yeah, it is one of those that came together rather fast. Of just I think weirdly enough, the original riff came to me in goofing around with the keyboard and just like a really fuzzy low end section of just finding that tempo and really wanting to delve into a really slow paced thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then bringing it to guitar, it just kind of took on more um, loud ebb and flow to it. Um, Lyrically, though, I think it's everything on the record is vaguely connected, or rather, it kind of connected itself here and there.
Okay.
I like to think that if Leatherwings is the perspective of one afflicted with vampirism reflecting on their agelessness and watching those and the things that they love die, Thousand Eyes is kind of a response to that in a as a victim onlooking to someone unknowable or in inability to connect. And that was kind of where that comes from in a lot of ways. Um, it's weird, but a lot of my stuff comes from uh, movies and comic books primarily. But something that kind of stuck with me, apart from the very obvious Yu-Gi-Oh reference, if you know, you know, um, was this scene in the original Superman movie where Lois and him are flying, and that sort of concept of the evocative of like the all-powerful being and the unknowing mortal kind of dichotomy was the a little bit in the wheelhouse there.
Nice. Does that also get in because it's I think it's soaring high or high above is one of the
More or
lyric
less.
lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I there's probably a biblical reference in there too, but I think primarily it's just the idea of looking upon something that you uh can't quite comprehend.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was the motivation for each of you to want to get into music and play? Well, not so much, there's two kind of motivations. There's one just to want to play an instrument, but there's another one to want to be in a band, because lots of people can play guitar, but they don't necessarily want to join a band, or they don't think about it. So what was it for motivation for each of you to want to one play an instrument, but then also like take that further and say, I'd like to be in a band with other folks and make original music as opposed to doing covers because it's another thing you could do. Why don't we start with Torin?
So, um, I've literally like my entire life I have been a musician. Literally since before I could talk or walk, I was singing. Um, there's the story goes, as a literal baby, I like the Cranberries album No Need to Argue was played around my house quite a lot when I was growing up. And so the very beginning of the album, the song Ode to My Family, in the beginning, the do 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 and so on. Like I would sing that. And very as additionally as the story goes, apparently my mom told my pediatrician about that, and my pediatrician always wanted to see me sing, and apparently I got gnarly stage fright and never sang for her, which is funny because now I don't get stage fright like at all. So but as a baby I was mortified of singing in front of anyone except for like my mom. So um so just music has been a part of me my entire life. Um and so then as for playing in a band and playing original music, I well, so as a teenager I played covers exclusively. I'm not a songwriter. I tried dabbling in songwriting a little bit here and there and just never really felt comfortable with it and never felt terribly motivated at it. So I just never really did much. I'm sure I could learn if I wanted to, but
Yeah.
so um and so I spent pretty much my entire adolescence just playing covers. And I didn't really have musical tastes that lined up with a lot of my friends, so I
Yeah.
didn't really have other people to play with. So I would I would just take my guitar and just go out busking and play covers, and that was how I performed as a teenager. And I just kind of got sick of that. I just wanted I because I always wanted to play original music. And just like I said, just didn't really care enough about writing it myself to do it. Um so I just always wanted to play in a band so that I could just create something new and listen back on that and be like, I helped like bring this song into existence in a
Yeah.
form that people can hear. Um and so that just ended up just being the best way for me to do that, because for whatever reason drummers are fairly difficult to come across. I've ever played in a band. They're just, I play what you need, and they're like, yeah, we need it. I'm like, okay, come out, get no change of pace this time either.
It is hard to
Yeah.
find good drummers.
Although to be fair, in this band,
Everybody but me is
to
a
be fair, in this band, I do get a change of pace. Sometimes yes, Dan's the only non-drummer in the band. But in this band, I do get a change of pace because I sometimes I get to play band live, very very occasionally accordion as well.
Oh,
But
cool.
drums is, like I said, usually what's called for. So that's where I'm at.
Cool. Dan, how about you?
Um, I think like Thorin, it's kind of always been a part of my life and upbringing. I was raised on Elvis Presley quite a bit.
Nice.
So my dad's a fanatic. But my mom always did a lot of singing. I remember driving around just singing along to Elvis songs as a young kid. So I kind of got swayed by the that rock star um lifestyle of like, oh, I want to do that. Like I want to do that. I always wanted to sing. Um, I wrote my first song when I was 10. Um, but like I didn't play music. I could just sing. So like I had no idea really what I was doing. Like I got my first guitar at 11 and I didn't play it till I was probably like 14 or something like that. Like I just
Oh,
kind of fiddled, but I really
yeah.
never learned. I didn't, no one around me played, so I couldn't really learn from anybody. And then I moved up to the pseudo country area, and met a bunch of musicians, and there's not much to do up here, so we were all metalheads, so we all kind of like always talked about forming a band, and none of us ever actually did. We all had band names and all this stuff. And so it's kind of always been the fantasy for the longest time. And then I got my first bass from a cousin, and I just started playing it. And I didn't join a band till no, I started a band late high school, but we never played out. We never played shows. I think we wrote maybe 5 songs, but I never found a drummer. And now again, I'm playing with 3 of them. But like eventually meeting Charles through a local community theater, he definitely gave me the opportunity to fully be in a band. Like I really didn't start playing out till I met Charles, and I think in my 20s by then. So it had been a fantasy mostly for the longest time, and then finally getting to do it and realizing it's not very glamorous. It's jarring, but also very humbling,
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just always been something I thought about doing and fantasized about doing, and now I get to do it.
that's cool. That's awesome. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as me just getting into music in general, I don't know if y'all I'm assuming most everybody here is like local to Michigan. We grew up with Smooth Jazz V98.7 when it used to be a jazz station. So my mom was a DJ there for the longest time,
Oh,
including
really?
when
Awesome.
I was
What?
yeah, yeah, all sorts of wonderful new information this week.
This
The
didn't come up.
the
We don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I was 1, 2, 3 years old. She was working, and she would bring me to work, so I'd just be running around this radio station with Smooth Jazz and Kenny G and Tim Bowman playing, and like that
It's
was
amazing.
my first and I mean there was that. I mean there was a piano sitting in my living room as early as I was like 4 years old, so I was just like I was honestly just kind of fucking around on that, and then my mom's like, "Okay, we're gonna get you lessons." So I started taking piano when I was taking piano lessons when I was 9, and then that sort of evolved into um, being able to play bass, guitar, and then as Dan alluded to, drums eventually. Um, and so yeah, I've been playing music, I mean seriously since I was 9 years old. I'm 25 now, so
Wow.
that's 16 years
Yeah.
but of some kind of music. But being in a band specifically, honestly, it's like I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the rock star fantasy that Dan mentioned earlier that sort of came like a little later. I
Uh,
think it sort of started with like there was just some buddies in my from high school. I'm in another band. We're still around. We're still doing stuff. It's me and my high school buddies. And I don't know. It's we all just kind of like music, and we just kind of like playing together. So
yeah.
it's I don't know. It's a way for if you're in a band with somebody, you just that person on a different level than maybe some
Right.
not necessarily deeper, but just like you just know them in a different
Yeah, for sure.
that's unique.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely get to, well, you kind of bond over the music, and or if you've got a good group of people, they kind of give you different ideas, things you hadn't thought about, and different kinds of music that you may not have been exposed to. So I think that's definitely something that I liked about being in a band. Charles, how about you? What was your motivations?
Well, I think some formative experiences for me was joining. Well, I guess beyond that, I always liked reading stories, telling stories, making things up, um, and eventually joining a middle school band.
All right.
And I think the smoking gun incident was probably when we were doing tryouts for what instruments we would be good at. I had it in my head I would play like saxophone or something because I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool one. And when I go to the teacher, they're like, yeah, your mom called, you have asthma, so you can't do a wind instrument, so go play drum. So then they throw me in the back with all the percussion kids. And that was probably the smoking gun of what set me on the path to not only start playing drums, joining marching band throughout high school, and all the while goofing around with guitars and realizing you need to have some foundations with drums and going back and forth. My first high school band, I was just going to be the drummer. And then we had our first practice and the singer didn't show up. So they were like, can anyone kind of sing? And at the time I had been in theater, I believe. So there, I was like, eh. So I was the singing drummer, and that transitioned to the infatuation with writing more and more. And that was more or less the transitional period from playing drums and singing to learning how to play guitar and singing, and then doing it all by yourself until you could find people to help support whatever that is. But by and large, I think the biggest thing for me is I want to, tell stories and create things and create a world to kind of expand what we can talk about, what we can perceive, and then life in general inspires. So a lot of stuff, but still trying to figure that out.
So you mentioned,
Real quick,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, real quick. I think it's interesting that you were told you couldn't play the sax because of your asthma. That there was a kid that I went to elementary and middle school with, who in middle school he started playing the sax and he had asthma too. So like, asthma is obviously not inherently a disqualifier. I don't know if his asthma is as bad as yours, but like,
I'm sure it's
yeah,
not,
I'm sure it's not. But like,
But
but
also, let's
yeah,
not forget
in
the
my
kid with
particular case at the
asthma is
time,
the thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, really, and
we
actually,
do our best.
you bring up a good point, Torin, because I think, and I could just be making shit up, but I could have swore that I had read somewhere that actually, exercising your lungs, the type of deep breathing you would have to do to play a wind instrument is actually good for you. It's in terms of, asthma. And obviously, it doesn't bother you too much today, Charles, because you can sing and do a good job with that. So,
I mean, he does
Bothers
like
me plenty,
hit the
but
inhaler when he's gets
yeah,
off stage.
I have
It's on
learned
stage with.
to live and figure out
how to
how to
deal
work
with it.
with it.
Nice.
yeah, and when we record, like when we get down to like recording vocal parts, Charles always comes in extra prepared because he knows he needs to knock out each part in like one, maybe two takes, and he does. Like
Yeah,
what you
there
hear
was.
on record, it's rare for us to do more than a couple vocal takes.
Wow.
I mean, the whole drive to recording the album, there was a point Charles and I didn't talk because he was just doing breathing exercises, and that's an hour drive. It was a very quiet drive that he's just blowing in a straw
Ah,
just to make sure that he can do it.
Just a whole hour of.
Yeah, yes.
sometimes it just you gotta get your warm ups in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
All you
right.
listeners at home.
That's right. So, I always like to kind of do like um, a retrospective as far as, albums that have been influential to you. So, what was the very first album you bought with your own money? Dan, since you're laughing.
Oh, it's one, it dates myself, and two, it's just ridiculous. The first thing I ever bought with my own money, music wise, was a cassette tape of the Baha Men, Who Let the Dogs Out.
Yes,
Excellent.
amazing.
Excellent.
That was one of my favorite records as a kid.
That is fantastic. Charles, how about you?
I think I can say for the record, it was a compilation of horror movie soundtracks.
Awesome.
That's right.
Best of.
Nice. Do you remember which horror movie soundtracks were on there?
Yeah, it wasn't like the official versions, so it was like slightly demented version, like made for public broadcasting versions of like the Nightmare on Elm Street, the um Tubular Bells of Exorcist, of course the Hitchcock stuff.
Yeah.
And this was all just variation of that, and I had a deep appreciation for that at the time because that was like this is what I need. This is music. Tell me
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, then it, yeah,
Uh, Joe, how about you?
I had to dig a little bit for this, and the answer surprised me. I was, how old was I? I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. It was a CD copy of Michael Jackson's Number One.
Oh,
It was,
right.
yeah. It's weird because it's like I was really into Michael Jackson growing up, and not that I don't like his music now, but just
Yeah.
like compared to everything that I listen to now, it's just so different. So, yeah.
Torin, how about you?
Yeah, I had to scroll. I stepped off screen because I was scrolling through my iTunes library to see. Um, so I grew up like listening to like until I was like 18 or 19, just listening to what it was a music library that was honestly probably mostly pirated stuff that my family all pirated.
Yeah.
I didn't do any illegal downloading myself. Um, but um, I think the first album I ever bought myself was an album I already had in the pirated music library, but probably the second Modest Mouse album, Lonesome Crowded One,
Nice.
because I absolutely love early Modest Mouse. Like, I could listen to their first three albums forever and never get sick of it.
Awesome. That's excellent. So do you guys have any, if the Picassos could play anywhere in the world, where would you want to play, each of you? And would there be any bands you'd like to have on the bill with you? Let's start with Charles.
that's a good one. Hmm. I guess I don't know any like particular like venues that are the dream right now, but I would just love to play like in a historical setting. Maybe, I mean, everyone's gonna guess Dracula's Castle in Romania,
Yeah.
perhaps. You could probably set up a show there in
Hell
the
yeah.
Great Hall or something. Wouldn't that be? See that to me would feel like we've really done something.
That would be awesome.
As far as any bands, really, yeah, if there's a locals on the in the area, maybe we'd search out for some support that way. Who knows?
Yeah, cool. That would be cool. Some Transylvanian rock. Joe, how about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're thinking big, Charles. I was thinking like, oh, the Masonic Temple might be cool. Like,
Yeah, Masonic Schmonic. Who knows?
yeah, but like, the Masonic Temple in Detroit would be fun. Um, regardless of whether this band or any of my other bands that I play with, I think the Fillmore would just be a lot of fun to play.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know, just would love to tap into the summer whenever possible.
Cool. Any bands you'd like to play with?
Uh, I don't have a good answer for that. The thing is, it's like as far as like our niche and our genre of whatever you want to call it, goth rock,
Mhm.
cemetery punk, whatever else, this kind of a brief rabbit trail. It's like this is not a genre that like I actively sought out initially. It was very much a situation where it was like I was in a band with Thorin, um, and by happenstance he was like, "Hey, we're kind of looking for a keyboardist. Do you want to jump on board?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'll give it a try." And of course, I end up, really digging it, really digging the sound. Um, so, but that said, I'm still kind of learning what some of the me personally. I mean,
Right,
obviously,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, there's
Like
you
what
have the
other
other
bands would kind of fit. Yeah.
yeah, what would be like the big names, you know,
Yeah.
that would fit
Yeah.
our niche.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes what I think is fun is when you have a show that where the bands they're not like wildly different, but it's different, you know? So you have like you guys and then, I don't know, you throw in who- maybe some like an actual bluegrass band, you know? So like
Yeah.
Wilson Thicket or something. I mean, they're local, but you know, throw in some mix like that, and then maybe throw in, I don't know, an R&B band just to kind of give you a little change. So you'd have all
Those do
these
make
different flows.
for interesting shows, and we have played shows like that where
Yeah.
it's us and the you know something that's definitely more you know 2000s pop punk sort of
Yeah.
style, and
Yeah.
you know it's fun. It's like
Yeah.
you meet a lot of cool people like that.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
lot of cool bands.
Thorin, how about you?
Yeah, as far as where we play, I don't really care. Like as long as there's people there, that's like as long as there's people there to enjoy us, and as long as there's other cool bands like on the bill or other cool musicians, whether they're bands or solo artists or whatever.
Right.
And I guess I have two answers for who I'd like to play with. One of them is obvious. I mentioned Modest Mouse and how much I absolutely love them. Being able to like open for them would be a dream come true. And actually, kind of ironically, my first gig with my first band was at a venue that Modest Mouse had played at like a couple weeks before. Needless to say, we had a much smaller audience than they did. But then the other band I'd like to play with is actually a band I'd like to play with again, because we actually did play with Amigo the Devil, like like one of our first gigs together after Dan and I came into the picture.
Cool.
Was opening for Amigo the Devil and Harley Poe. And this was like right as Amigo was really starting to gain traction. So he was a really, really nice guy. And which is really funny when you listen to his music and he sings about like some really, really like really grim stuff. But he was just the friendliest guy. Like I was the first one of us to get there, and I was like off over in the corner, like tuning up my drums. And he comes over to me and is like, "Hey, I'm Danny." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm Thorin." I had no idea who he was. Didn't know he was one of the headlining acts. But he was just the nicest guy.
That's awesome.
He gave me free copies of his CDs too. Like
that's cool.
Like, I'll buy a
his aura
shirt
was very comforting.
That's cool.
I'm sorry,
that's
was that
cool.
Dan?
I said his aura was very comforting. Like
Yeah.
he felt like he would give a really good hug.
He did. He hugged me actually. It was really nice.
I don't want to say if he hugged me or not. I can't remember. I feel like he did. I was like, oh wow, I feel really safe right now.
That's awesome. That's
Which
awesome.
is why I think he can get away with the music that he feels safe.
He can join us at Dracula's Castle anytime.
Right.
Absolutely.
Ideal.
So Dan, how about you?
I think I agree with Thorin. I'm game to play absolutely everywhere. But locally speaking, I've always wanted to play St. Andrew's Hall.
Oh yeah.
I have
Cool
seen some of my favorite bands on that stage, so it would just be really cool.
We're working on it.
Nice.
Eventually, like I feel like if that was the farthest I made it, I would be very satisfied with my career. I hope it doesn't end there, but as for bands I would like to play with, I think Murder by Death would be a very fun show to be a part of. And again, I was even going to say Amigo and Harley Poe as well. Like, just it was a good time, a great show. The crowd was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great show, great group of people. I didn't really get to talk to Harley Poe, but I've been a fan for a couple of years, so it was really cool to get to play with them anyways.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Most
So what's next for you guys? What do you have coming up? So just so you know, podcasts that come out next Wednesday. So don't tell me about a show this weekend because it'll be past.
It'll be
Well.
that sad.
Well, good
That
timing because we
following
have a
week.
show the following weekend.
All right.
do.
We got 420 at Smalls and Hamtramck. where we will
Awesome.
be supporting Tim Berry and Fish Guts.
Excellent. That should be a
Yeah.
fun show.
So Charles and I saw Tim Berry back, I think 2019-ish, with Against
Supporting
Me. And
against me, no less.
yeah,
Yeah, that should be a really fun show. I'm not super familiar with Fish Guts though, so I don't know. Any other shows beyond that? No.
I know we have some stuff in May coming up. We've got May 10th. I believe it's at Corktown Tavern with Pancho Villa's Skull, Headless Mary. And then we do have May 26th or 25th,
Yeah, I think it's
whatever
25th.
that Saturday of that weekend is,
Yeah, 25th.
at the historic Masonic Temple of Bay City, not the one you're thinking, but nevertheless, still a historic Masonic temple. And we're playing with Vasm or Crypt. It's
Oh,
like a
nice.
little dark, spooky goth fest night. So we're very excited to head back out that way and with our good friends Vasm, who they were just in Europe. If anyone saw that, they played all over.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, wild.
It's been was it last year? Last year at Corktown, I think, is when I saw them. So it's been a year at least. But yeah, they're great. So that'll be an awesome show.
Yeah, they're always
Fantastic.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being on Fans with Bands. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I've just got one last question for each of you, and that is pineapple or no pineapple on pizza? Joe.
Oh shit. I'm a pineapple guy. I like
All right.
pineapple. Great.
All right. Torin, how about you?
I have stomach issues and I can't eat pineapple or pizza.
Oh, damn.
Mm-mm.
So,
It's fun.
oh man, I feel for you, man. That's a bummer. Dan, how about you?
I'm a no pineapple guy, but I'm also just a pepperoni and cheese kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
But I won't judge you for putting pineapple on pizza. I don't care. Do whatever you want to do with your life.
That's right. That's right. Charles, how about you?
Oh, I will take that pineapple.
All
Um,
right.
my secret order would be pineapple feta with red pepper, and that's kind
Whoa.
of to me the perfect combination. But
Yeah. Now, see, I've heard pineapple with, ham, obviously, that's the classic one. Pineapple and jalapeno, but I've never heard feta. That's intriguing right there. Very nice.
whatever pizza chain wants to make that specialty, I mean,
Yeah.
by all means.
Yeah. And they could call it the Picasso.
There you go.
There you go.
You'd never think.
Well, guys, thanks again for being on Fans with Bands. I really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having us.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
That's
Hopefully I'll
beautiful.
catch a show. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you out. Just keep us posted.
Yep. All right. Cool. Many thanks to Charles, Dan, Torin, and Joe of the Picassos, along with their fans, Abby and Lauren, for joining me on this episode of Fans with Bands. I've not listened to a lot of goth, but I was very much drawn in by the Picassos' music that is unlike anything I've ever heard and is extremely fascinating. It was a treat to spend some time with the band and hear their stories. I also want to thank them profusely and apologize to everyone for the rude interruption by some spam Zoomer shepherd. Happily, we all seem to recover from the interruption. You can catch the Picassos live on April 20th at Smalls in Hamtramck and on May 25th at the historic Masonic Temple in Bay City. Be sure to pick up their album, Divination Scars, Among the Dead in Symmetry. Stay tuned to their website and socials for more information. See the show notes for all the details and links. Bands are nothing without you, the fans. Purchasing music and merchandise is critical to their survival. If you can help out your favorite bands, please do. If you're in Michigan, consider following the Playing in Detroit area tonight and SE for Southeast Michigan Music Facebook pages. They are fantastic places for fans and bands to support each other and share our combined love of music. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to get each and every episode of Fans with Bands. Spread the word by rating the show, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your priest, tell everyone, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. You can keep in touch by following us on social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, be well and kick out the jam.